Hi! If you are new here, all you need to know is that I have watched the first season of the One Piece live-action adaptation, and now, for the first time ever, I am reading the manga, and, more specifically, the first 100 chapters that the live-action has covered so far. With all of that said, let's begin. Chapter 6. Number 1. At the beginning of this chapter, the Marines call the Devil Fruit the secret treasure from those seas. Are they talking about the Grand Line, or is it something more specific? For now, I am leaning towards them simply talking about the Grand Line. Next, we see Zoro in action for the first time, and I am sorry, but I must say that Zoro giving a long and dramatic speech with a mouthful of sword was really funny. If it's not his strength or fighting skills, then people should at the very least be impressed with him being able to speak clearly around the sword handle. But all jokes aside, let's go back to more serious stuff. I was genuinely shocked when Morgan told the Marines to shoot themselves and the Marines were actually about to obey. Morgan already seemed so much worse than his live-action counterpart from the earlier chapters, but the fact that the Marines fear him more than death take that idea to the next level. Zoro's reaction to that was unintentionally funny as he said, "Something's wrong with those Marines." That was a fair observation. But what I liked the most in that scene was Luffy immediately charging and taunting Morgan. I feel like he was indirectly defending the Marines. It felt like pick someone of your own size kind of deal. At the end of the fight, Helmeppo appears and threatens to shoot Koby if Luffy doesn't stop. I think a few important things happen here. First, I feel like the future duo of Koby and Helmeppo will feel even more meaningful after an extreme scene like this. Next, even more importantly, I loved how Koby was fully prepared to sacrifice himself and told Luffy to not listen to Helmeppo, to continue fighting and win. The sad part is that some of that readiness to sacrifice himself comes from an extremely low self-esteem. But despite that, Koby still felt very brave in that scene. I already liked his character in the live action, but the manga version of Koby continues being 10 times more incredible. And final note on this chapter is that I love that Luffy prioritized saving Koby even if he was warned Morgan was behind his back, because he knew that his first crew member was there to watch his back. And then Zoro even called Luffy captain. The whole ending scene felt really sweet, balancing out all the action in this chapter. Next is Chapter 7, Friends. It's probably an unpopular opinion, but I find that this chapter was one of the strongest in the entire Volume 1 from the writing standpoint. First, we see a short but very sweet moment of how happy the Marines are to lose here. Then we move on to the scene where the Rice Bowl girl's mother feeds the trio for saving the town from Morgan. But the most important line here is Koby saying, "It's kind of you to feed me along with the heroes." It broke my heart, and I wanted to scream at the page that Koby was a hero too. Sure, he didn't contribute to the fight much physically, but it's the intentions that matter. I think it's much more heroic to stand up for what you believe even when there's not much you can do than fighting when you know you're capable. Then Koby continued breaking my heart further when he started talking about friends and he said, "Even I wouldn't stick up for me." I know that usually I review these chapters more or less in a chronological order, but here, for thematic purposes, I want to jump straight to the second half of the chapter. When Koby asked to join the Marines, they were suspicious of him. What I loved is how it wasn't Luffy's plan that convinced them to accept Koby. Instead, it was Koby's own determination, his own passion. It fits the theme of the whole chapter. Koby absolutely is heroic despite the fact that for now he's weak physically and also tends to get hysterical, because he has the heart of a hero. He doesn't see it yet, but the others do. And that's what I meant when I said that the writing of this chapter felt really strong. Now, let's go back in time a bit to Luffy's plan. He started provoking Kobe into a fight to show the Marines that Kobe wasn't one of the pirates. I admit I was a bit surprised that he showed such a delicate touch in this situation. I wonder if perhaps sooner or later he'll reach a point where he can't save every situation with his punches and will be forced to use more of subtle tactics like these, and that's a setup for that to show that he's capable of that. But if not, then the scene alone, just the way it is, at the very least shows how creative Luffy is, which is clear from the unpredictable way he fights, but also in more mundane situations. Finally, I want to talk about the townspeople and the Marines. I think the way the Marines acted was very understandable. They didn't fight Luffy and Zoro, they were grateful for the save, but they also continued doing their duty and asked these pirates to leave their town. Despite understanding the Marines, I still found it really sweet how the people of the town tried defending our pirates. It was just one panel, but it added a lot to the general mood of the chapter. The most beautiful was the ending scene, where Kobe came to see Luffy and Zoro off, and he saluted them and called Luffy a captain. The scene was already strong as it was, but then we saw the rest of the Marines join the salute. I love how even nameless background Marines were written in a way where they were important to the themes of this chapter and the story. Also, it might be a bit unfair since I had the advantage of having seen the Netflix show, but I feel like even without that, this chapter would have done a wonderful job to solidify that one of the main themes of this story is Luffy changing the world, one person at a time. The chapter ends with a bit of a mystery from the narrator, who says that Luffy and Zoro set sail after making some kind of a serious mistake. I only have a couple of guesses. One of them is that they forgot to take any food or water. To be fair, there is some kind of a barrel and a bag on the boat, so my first theory might be wrong. The second theory I have is that their mistake was setting sail without knowing where they are actually going, since, unlike the live action, Nami, their navigator, isn't introduced yet. I know Volume 1 technically ends with Chapter 8, but I feel like this is a good place to stop my review. I can see that the next chapter is called Nami, so it's probably better to group the chapters this way. Thank you for listening. I'm sorry if this review is a bit short. That's because I'm figuring out how to group the chapters as I go, and it's mostly based on intuition and my knowledge of the live action. Please share your own thoughts in the comments, and if you're interested, I'll see you in the next part as I review the next batch of chapters.